message and let me know. I'm Ben Grosvenor, Head of Retail and Fine Wine at Davies Wine Merchants. And firstly, I'd like to say thank you for joining us for our inaugural En Primeur at Home tasting with Chateau Angludet of Margaux. As you know, 2019 is a vintage unlike any other in that very few merchants have been over to taste the wines yet. And we saw that as an opportunity to bring the wine closer to you, our customers. Fortunately for us, Max at Angludet was on board with that too. So obviously rarely do our customers get to taste the unfinished barrel samples, and that's a point worth remembering. These wines aren't the finished product. With another 12 to 18 months of aging ahead of them, they've just left the comfort of their cozy barrels into which they've only recently begun their élevage, their raising as it were. The samples can be a little shy at the best of times when tasting in situ, so it is kind of Max and Chateau Angludet to let us judge them at this stage. I would say of the 2019 vintage and the wine in question, I'll let Max talk us through it in detail, but suffice to say it appears to be a classic and very good vintage, even exceptional in places. As is becoming the norm, and again, Max will probably touch on this, Bordeaux had to endure some challenges during the growing season, from wet and cold weather in June during the flowering, which caused problems with the grapes developing, to intense heat and some drought throughout July and August as well, though those threats were largely mitigated by moderating weather later in the season and by careful grape selection at the sorting table. I would say on Chateau Angludet, the superb 2019 follows some unkind years for the Chateau. I don't think Max will mind me saying that, where in 2017 there was no wine produced at all due to the horrible frosts. And then in 2018, a seriously decreased crop due to mildew. We at Davies believe this is one of the finest vintages for Angludet to date. So without further ado, I'll now pass on to Mr. James Davey, 5th generation chairman of Davies, to introduce our merchants to you and perhaps say a few words about our long-standing relationship with the Sichel family behind Chateau Angludet. And then we'll go to taste with Max over at the Chateau. If you've any questions at any point, please use the chat function to send those to Max, and he'll do his best to answer during and after the tasting. And I'd just like to say, once again, thank you to everyone, and thanks to Max for having us. James, over to you.
Right, good evening, everybody. Lots of people I know, some I haven't met. Welcome. A world first, I imagine, certainly for Angludet, certainly for Davies, En Primeur online, on video, and I've done my best to look. I mean, we always work in the evenings anyway, so this is work. You know, working from home comes naturally to some of us, which is obviously very good fun. And but on a more serious note, it's really exciting to have this Angludet 19 to look at and talk about with Max as well. For those, I think everybody knows Davies, but I'll just mention a couple of things. It's our 150th year, which should be really fantastic. It is, insofar as it's our 150th year. It's a shame, as we've all got the same challenges with strange times, but we're trying to make the most of it. We were having some fun in January and February and early March, and we hope to pick up later in the year. So we'll keep you posted as and when we can do things. Talk about challenges in the vineyards over the last few years for Angludet. It's certainly right in our faces, these sort of challenges now. So I hope you're all well and able to enjoy in some respect and carry on in some respect your normal lives. Just very briefly, a bit of history about our relationship with Angludet. As far as I know, because in a family business going back generations, you do lose a little bit of what exactly happened. But I know that my father met Peter Sichel, Max's uncle. Grandfather, or great-grandfather. Max, you were looking younger by the day. In the 1950s, when my father was doing a stage or a traineeship at EChem, and struck up a great friendship with Peter Sichel. So before 1961, when and I won't tell all the rest of the story, but when Angludet and the Sichel family came together, so it goes over quite a few generations already, and there's quite a lot of Sichels, so you need that time to get to know them all. and we've been working with Max for 5 years probably now. Time flies. Yes, 50, 60 years and going strong. I'm a great Angludet fan. I've spent some time there after school, which was great fun. Worked at the Sichel winery in Bel Air, making wine or being told what to do, which is much easier. I've been looking forward to hearing what Max has got to say. So that's enough from me. Thank you for joining. Looking forward to hearing the real story and tasting the wine later. Max.
Thank you very much, James. That's very kind of you for this introduction. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today, tonight. It's the first time I'm doing this. It's quite strange to be talking to a camera, but I'm sure it will go well. No, we're very happy to work with such a prestigious wine merchant in London, which is Davy. So yeah, my grandfather and several generations have been working together, and I think the Davy really is well, being one of the most prestigious wine merchants, has established the wine bar, created the wine bars in London. I think Charlie, my uncle, told me that, and I think that's very positive. And so we're very happy to work with Davies. We're going to talk today about Angludet. I'm going to share a little presentation on your screen, which you should be able to see from now. So it's a small presentation on Angludet, just to give you a few pictures of Angludet and give you an idea of what's happening. I just need to get the chat on. Okay, or maybe so. Can Ben tell me if there's any questions? I don't know how to put the chat on. Don't know why I can't see it. Anyway,
I will let you know if they come through, Max. I can't see any at the moment.
Thank you very much. Alors, Château Angludet. So just to let you know, so the Sichel family has been in the wine industry since 1883. That's when we started selling wine in Bordeaux. And the first vineyard, which my great grandfather bought, was Château Palmer in 1938, which he bought with 4 friends. And since then, we've always been in Margaux. So Margaux, when you think about Margaux, it's that's really the Sichel identity. That's where we come from, that's where we live, and that's where we grew up. In 1961, my grandmother, who lives just here, purchased the vineyard, well, the domain, with my grandfather Peter. At that time, the Chateau Angludet was a ruin. There was only 7 hectares, which was not in a very good shape because there was a big frost, and the building was falling apart. But they invested a lot of time, a lot of money into the chateau, and today it's a 32-hectare vineyard, et voilà. So this is my grandfather Peter in that was in the 1980s in the barrel cellar. So something important about Angludet, it's a home. It's the Sichel family home. So we gather here at weekends for Easter, Christmas, and we often we are all around here. And the big 5 are the 5 brothers, and these are my 5 uncles. And so they are the 6th generation of the Sichel family working in the wine business. And the second from the right here so second from the right is Ben Sichel, and this is very important. Ben Sichel, he's the general manager and winemaker at Angludet today, but he's been here since he was born, and so that was in 1965. So he grew up here. He worked here since 1985 and produced his first vintage in 1989. Which means so we're going to drink tonight his 30th vintage at Angludet, and it's quite rare to have one winemaker in one and single chateau who has been working here all his life basically. He knows every single plot, every single vines. He thinks about Angludet all the time. He lives at Angludet. Angludet is all his life. So this is the property here today. That's how it looks today, and I can assure you it wasn't like that a few years ago, and it's looking much better now. So Chateau Angludet, one strong identity about Angludet is the vineyard is right in front of the chateau. So it's 32 hectares of vines in front of the chateau, where we have mainly Cabernet Sauvignon. We have quite a lot of Merlot, 46%, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 46% of Merlot, and we also have quite a lot of Petit Verdot at Angludet, which is quite unusual for a Margaux appellation. But it's coming back to it was used quite a long time ago, but now it's coming back as a trend, and more and more chateaux are using Petit Verdot. So having 32 hectares in front of the chateaus gives a strong identity to the terroir of Angludet. It means that we basically have the same soil on all the hectare, and it has this strong identity of one single area, because many chateaux in Bordeaux have a few hectares here, 5 miles away they have another plot, 10 miles away they have another plot, and it's quite éparpillé, as we say, spread out. And that's I think is a strong it's an added value for Angludet to have this 32 hectares for this strong identity around this its wine, and also to be able to work very quickly, to be very efficient, because you can see what's happening in the vineyard very easily, and when we have to go in the vineyard, it's straight away. You're not missing anything. So that's one important thing about Angludet, and voilà. So Angludet, we've been through hard vintages, good vintages, but these these few last years were a bit complicated. First of all, 2017. We frosted at 95%, and so we didn't produce any Angludet at all. We produced a bit of the second wine, but none of the first wine. This is one problem of having all the vineyards in front of the chateau, because if a frost comes, it comes like a wind. It's like a corridor. And if it's on your vineyard, it's everything. Like it happened in 2017, end of April, and everything frosted, and that was terrible, especially for my uncle Ben, who works here all year long and thinks about Angludet, and it's like his baby. He was devastated. You can talk to Ben for 2 weeks. and it was so that was very hard at Angludet in 2017. So having several plots spread out can be also added value, avantage for some chateaus. So 2017 was difficult. 2018 was also difficult. We only produced 9 hectoliters per hectare, where we normally would produce around 45 to 50 on an amazing year. Which is 9 hectoliters per hectare. It's nothing. We produced around 30,000 bottles instead of 130,000, which was very difficult in 18. And thank God 2019 came afterwards, which we will talk about just a bit afterwards. 2017 was also hard because we started the biodynamic farming. This is something which Ben thought about many years ago. He says 40 years ago he read some books about it, and then he learned about it. And at that time, he didn't have time to investigate and plan the work around Angludet in biodynamics. But he always found that having a balanced ecosystem around the vineyard was very important. First of all, for the vines to protect themselves against the many diseases, and also to have perfectly and really nice fruits at the end. So many years ago, when he in his early 30s, when he thought about these biodynamics, he didn't have time. He had the kids around. He used to race a lot on the motorbikes, and he just didn't have time to work around this. And since a few years ago, so he's been thinking about it since it's been for the last 10 years. He said this is the way forward, and he says he has time around. He has time now, but this is all his life is around Angludet. So Ben is the kind of person who thinks about Angludet night and day, wakes up at 4 in the morning if he has ideas for something, wakes up at 4 in the morning to go in the vineyard when there's the frost, and always taking care Angludet like his baby. And so in 2017, he decided to go in biodynamic farming 100%. And unfortunately, we frosted at 95%. So we didn't have we didn't have the result, and we can taste the wines. So that was a very difficult period. 2018 was also very difficult, as I said. We did 9 hectoliters per hectare, and this came from the mildew, which is a fungus which attacks the grapes when it's hot and humid. And that was 2018. It was very humid at the beginning of the season, and then very hot. And in biodynamics, it's you can treat it, but it's very hard. You have to kind of predict it. It's you have to be in the vineyard on a very regular basis, looking at the leaves and being very careful. And as it was the second year of biodynamics, we got caught, and it hit Angludet quite badly, and it did hit the Bordeaux vineyard appellation quite badly too. Actually, many vineyards in Bordeaux, especially the ones who are farming in biodynamics, have suffered a lot. But
Max,
today.
Yes.
Yes.
Did that make you question whether or not to continue with biodynamics?
Of course. This when you lose an entire crop, which happened in 2017. We were in biodynamics, but we knew it wasn't because it was in biodynamics. But financially, it's very hard. because you work all year long and and you have to pay everything, all the tools, all the people who work in the vineyards, in the cellar, and then nothing comes in. 2018, we knew that being in biodynamics was well, complicated the thing, and we knew that if we weren't in biodynamics, it would be easier because we only use the contact products who actually they wash away when it rains. So they can protect the grapes, but they're on the skin and on the leaves, and they protect the grapes like that. But if it rains, it washes away. Whereas if you're not in biodynamics, you can use the produits systémiques, which means products who go inside the grapes and in the vines and protects it for 14 days. So it's much easier and it's much more efficient at the beginning. Well, yeah, it's much more efficient for the moment. For the moment, I say, because when we'll be biodynamic farming for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the vines will be able to protect themselves much better. This is the beginning for the vines in 2017. So 2018, when it happened, we had a discussion about what are we going to do, and we actually quickly said, well, no, we believe in biodynamics. Ben has been thinking about it for many years, and he knows that this is the way forward. If you don't believe in that, and you spray products, well, you'll never. It means that you don't believe in biodynamics.
Sure.
We know that we'll have to. It's going to be hard. We know it's going to be hard, but we will have to adapt ourselves and the vines too. And one day, everything is going to be balanced, and we're working on this balance every day, and we really believe in the biodynamics. You can really see a strong difference. The where you can. I know biodynamics is hard to understand because there's many things that we can't scientifically explain. However, we can see visual facts. So in the vineyard, for example, for the Silis, for the 501 preparation, which is a Silis, a mineral that we spray, which is completely natural, which we spray on the leaves and on the vineyard. You can see in a few hours how everything gets organized. All the leaves are much more powerful, have much more energy, and you can see it straight away. Well, straight away in a couple of hours. And that's something we can see, and there's many things that we can see in the vineyard, we can see in the wine, and that can't be explained scientifically yet.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I've actually, on that note, Max, we've had a couple of questions from Mr. Kirkham, if I may put them to you.
Okay.
Was the whole vineyard area or all varieties converted to bio at the same time or in stages? And then what are the main changes in terms of style, texture, and intensity to the previous non-biodynamic juice produced from the grapes? Can you discern those yet in the couple of vintages that you've been going so far?
So we did everything. We put 100% on biodynamics. We believe when you believe in biodynamics, it doesn't make sense to do 10% of the vineyard, 20% of the vineyard. It just doesn't make sense.
Sure.
If you spray products just next to it, it easily can go elsewhere. And also in the wine itself, it goes at the end. You'll have products in the wine. So it just doesn't make sense to do it step by step. If you really believe in it, you'd go full on 100% of the vineyard, and that's what we did in 2017. Now, answering the second question about feeling it in the wine. At this stage, we haven't felt a massive difference in the wines. Ben, when I say he's been thinking about biodynamics since the 30 years ago, it's because he believes in a balanced ecosystem, and it's kind of what he put in the vineyard. The vineyard is situated 32 hectares in front of the chateau, protected by a forest, and he's always trying to get a balanced ecosystem, having fruit trees, having animals around the vineyard to balance all this. And we've always had this in mind. So there's today being fully in biodynamics is we can't see a massive difference yet. However, we see a difference in the vines themselves, with the berries also, which look much better, very more healthy too, which is very important for Ben and for the wine itself at the end. Today we are more focused on the grapes themselves, and everything everything comes from the vines. If you have a very good berry, you have a lot of chance to have a good wine. With the scientific progress, we've managed to produce good wines in difficult vintages. I mean that you can easily produce a correct wine, adding a lot of products in the cellar. When you're biodynamic, you don't do that. This is you're not allowed to do that. And also, you have a perfect fruit at the beginning, so you don't need to add anything. But to come back to your question about is there a difference between when we started biodynamics we didn't, well, and now we didn't really we don't we can't feel a strong difference for the moment. I hope I replied to your question.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. There is
Okay.
a question on grape varieties, and that is what factors have influenced the increase in popularity of Petit Verdot in Bordeaux?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's well, the global warming, and we've seen really hot temperatures in Bordeaux these past years, which we didn't have, which we didn't used to have in Bordeaux. So people had to adapt themselves, and some have decided to plant Petit Verdot. We've been using Petit Verdot for quite a bit, and but that's for two reasons. Because it's better when it's hot, because it's one of the grapes that matures, which is ripe at the right at the end, and also because Ben, so my uncle Ben, who's the winemaker, he loves the Petit Verdot. He thinks it's a great link between the Merlot and the Cabernet Sauvignon. The Petit Verdot will give a good, quite a lot of tannins, a good intensity, a lot of color, and a bit of spice. However, it's very hard to manage. At the beginning, he tried it out, and was quite surprised how strong it can be. And he really discovered that if you in the vineyard, if you're not careful enough, you can damage the Petit Verdot very, very easily. It's a very fragile vine that produces not many berries, little berries, and also the maturity period is very short. So if you don't pick it at the right time, it can be overripe and not good. And if you pick it too early, it's not going to be at all. It's going to be green, and it will have these strong and harsh tannins. So, and this window is very small with the Petit Verdot, and you don't want to miss that. So that's in the vines, and in the cellar, it's also very hard because you have to manage the Petit Verdot. You have to be very precise and not extracting too much. So not extracting. Ben doesn't do any remontage and no pigeage for the Petit Verdot. He leaves it infused in the tank and doesn't touch it. And and that's in the berries aren't fully, so it's full berries. And he waits for the compression, with the weight of all the berries, for the juice to come out really, really gently. If you extract too much with doing pumping overs and all that, you'll have really hard tannins. So very hard to manage the Petit Verdot. But when it's well managed, you have this really, it's very elegant, it's intense, and has a really nice color, adds a really nice color, quite powerful purpley color, and adds some spice to the wine. Are
Yeah,
there any?
thank you, Max. That's great.
Okay. Please let me know if there's any other questions.
We have one more outstanding at the moment,
Okay.
which is when was the D from Angludet dropped? Mr. Griffiths has always known it as Dongleday.
Oh, well, that's since the 2008 vintage, where we decided to take off the D, le D apostrophe, because for two reasons. In French, I'm not sure in English, but d'Angludet is not as nice as Angludet. Chateau Angludet is in French much nicer to pronounce, and much much nicer to pronounce. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure in English if it's d'Angludet, is it, if there's a, if it's nicer or not, but that's one reason. And the second reason is because in tastings, you often taste a lot of wines, and you're ranked in per order, alphabetic order, letters. And being at Chateau Angludet, we would be the first one, or nearly the first one, or just next to Angelus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we took off the d'Angludet, the D apostrophe, in the 2008.
Okay, great.
Okay, please let me know. I'm sure you would like to try the wine also. I've been talking maybe a bit too much. Are there any other questions, or we can maybe answer them afterwards?
Yeah, we'll come back to the questions. Thanks, Max.
Okay. So just a few pictures here of Ben working in the vineyard. He's the magician of Angludet, always thinking about how to make a good how to make Angludet better, and voilà. So I would like to speak about the 2019 vintage now. So 2019 vintage is it's a good vintage, overall good vintage in Bordeaux. I've been tasting quite a few wines, maybe 60 or 70 wines from of Grand Cru Classé in Bordeaux in 2019, and we could really see that it's an overall good vintage. The weather has been challenging. It was pretty good, but we were very we were scared at all time. it started with quite a lot of rain, and we were scared of having a second 2013, but thank God it started to well, just before that it rained a lot, and then we were so close to two frosts again. And I can assure you that with what happened in 2017, this time we were prepared. We So Ben ordered some fog dragons. So they are built in Hungary, and it's big machines where you put foin. The foin is some how do you say foin? Is the, you know, the yellow bots of grass, which you put in the machine and you heat it up. You put a fire to it, and then this machine you can move in the vineyard, and this creates a lot of heat in the vineyard, and it's like a heat wave. So he bought two of these from Hungary, and so we were prepared. Thank God the temperatures weren't too bad. We went it went down to -1, which was okay, but we were very, very scared. Afterwards, we had a lot of rain. We had then nearly the frost, and then it started with more sun, dry, sunny and dry weather, which was very good for for the flowering. And then the thing was the heat waves we had. So it wasn't the canicule, but it became very, very hot in July, reaching 43 degrees on several days. But what was good is that it was cold at nights, which is very, very important. And that actually helped the wine. August was fresh, which we needed that, because having these two heat waves in July, we were close to having a really, really big alcohol levels. So and that's a really strong characteristic of the 2019 vintage. 2019 vintage in Bordeaux is very hot. 2019 is one of the hottest vintages in the last 15 years in Bordeaux, and all. What was very important is to manage this alcohol level, and to avoid having too much alcohol, and to avoid being overripe, and really finding a good freshness in the wine with a good acidity. So what Ben did is that in the vineyard, first of all, he saw that the alcohol levels were getting quite high. So he decided to cut some the rameaux, the sticks. He started to cut some sticks, and that was he managed the sugar content in the grapes, and that was very important to do that, because when we taste today some 2019's Bordeaux, there's some wines which are made with a lot of alcohol. The second point around the vintage is also not using too much oak. Because when you use too much oak and you have high alcohols, the wine uses 5 to 6 millimeter from the barrel, which is the good tannins. And that's the tannins which are polymerized, so attached to themselves. And these are good tannins, which means it's tannins which are very soft, very souple, and just adds up a bit of structure to the wine. But if you have too much alcohol, the wine goes through, gets the 5 and 6 millimeters of good tannins, but also attacks the other part of the barrel, which is the real oak, and which is not good at all, because this real oak gives really hard tannins. So you had to be very careful. Ben, for the last 10 years, since 2011, has really changed the Angludet style. He's much more looking into something very delicate, very soft, with a good freshness in the wine. And he's not obviously looking for too much power. He's looking for intensity, but not too powerful. And that's very important for Ben. This year, 2019, is something quite special, because in December, so he knew that the with high alcohols it could affect with new oak, so he had to be careful. He decided in December to buy 4 amphoras, as you can see on the picture here. So these are amphoras made in Italy by Tava, which is one of the most renowned amphoras. And so he decided to buy 4 of these, and tasted, and realized that the wine was excellent. It had a really nice purity of the fruit. The fruit was really precise, and the tannins were very elegant, very smooth. And so he realized this was amazing. So he bought 40 different amphoras to mature Angludet 2019. So today there's 40 of these amphoras, and this contributes to a lot of precision in the wine, and a lot of silky tannins. He still use barrels. So today it's for the 2019 he uses 50% of barrels with 30% new oak, and 50% amphoras, where on the previous years it was 100% oak but 30% new oak, and then 1 and 2 years oak. So it's changing a lot, and looking for much more precision, a lot of smoothness, silky tannins, and that's very interesting for Angludet. So I suggest we start with the tasting now. So I have my bottle here. I'm sorry, it's getting a bit dark now. But I hope you can see. So I'm going to pour some Angludet 19 in my glass. So these are fresh from last Sunday. We did it with Ben. So taking the wines from barrels from the amphoras, and we hope you'll like it. It's a blend of 45 Cabernet Sauvignon, 43% of Merlot, and 12% of Petit Verdot. So as you can see, we managed to keep the alcohol quite low compared to a lot of vineyards in Bordeaux. Alcohol is at 13.5 and pH is at 368, which is very good for Angludet. We're very happy with that, because it was quite a challenge to maintain this alcohol level at around 13.5. A lot of Bordeaux wines are at 14.5, 15, and even more than 15, with pHs that go up to 4, which is very high. So I hope. So on the nose, it's. I'll let you taste the wine now. Up. I'll maybe shut this down, shut the screen down. Up. Ah.
Matt, to those of us new tasting en primeur, could you talk us through what it is that we're supposed to look out for at tasting a wine at such a young age? Because obviously it's kind of, you know, it's
So
got a long way to go.
it is a long way to go. But what's important today is to try and define the style of the wine. When we taste en primeur, that's what we do. We try to define the style of the chateau, and also how long will it live. For many years in Bordeaux, people thought that if you extracted the wine a lot, so doing pumping overs, and you had a really, really big wine in the mouth, that would mean that it would last forever. But that's not right. We've done studies, scientific studies, showing that a wine which is balanced at the beginning will have a life much more long than a wine which is over extracted. Everything is about balance. It's like in the vineyard, and in the wine, it's the same. If you have a wine which is correctly balanced at the beginning, with the right alcohol level, the right acidity, the right IPT, the right tannins, um, you'll have a very, very good chance to be able to drink this wine for many, many years. And obviously you need some intensity in the mouth, but everything is a matter of balance. We've tried many old wines which have never been good, actually, and we've seen that they were rated very good en primeur. So these old wines, there were some 80s and some 70s. We tried these wines, and we figured out that they are still, they're not big, but they're still very extracted. They're very dry, and we saw that the tastings were always, the notes were always the same: dry tannins, extracted. But it had good marks before when they tasted them en primeur. And this is because the winemaking has changed. Now we know that everything is a matter of balance. So if it's balanced at the beginning, you can taste it for a long time. And that's the challenge of the en primeur. En primeur, you need to you need to figure out the style of the vineyard, of the chateau, where it wants to go, and if it's balanced. And if it's balanced, well, it will go far. We've tried quite a lot of en primeur. There's a good intensity in some wines, but some are clearly overripe. It's jammy. The pH are very high. The acidity is too low, and we perfectly know that this wine isn't balanced. Some wines aren't balanced and won't live long. However, the big majority are good, and it's a good vintage, which will last long. I believe Angludet 19 will last for the next 30 years easily.
Okay, yeah, I'm finding a great freshness to this wine, despite the sort of the peaks in the heat during the summer. There's a lovely sort of floral minerality to the nose.
Mm. Mm. So it is very expressive on the nose, and what is really nice about it is that it's very soft and very elegant, very precise and delicate, and you can really feel also this freshness, which is also brought by the amphoras. You can really feel it feels like it's drinkable now. Actually, I could drink it now easily, and I'm sure it will be as good as this in the following years, for many years. And which is very interesting is to taste it now, taste it in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and see how it changes, because it will change. But I think it will change in a good way. It's going to be different. But the balance is there, and
And so you think customers should buy more than one case so that they have a bottle to take out every year for the next 20 years or so?
at least 60 bottles, I think.
Right. Okay.
Max,
No, no, yeah, I think it's interesting to have a few bottles, to be able to try them on a regular basis. And 2019 won't be disappointing, and will I'm sure will be very nice in the following years, in the future years.
Max,
Brilliant.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, interesting I mean, the wine, I have to say, second time I tasted it, so I tell a lie. Very pure, very round, and really lovely. And that talking about balance is everything. And I've tasted en primeur vintages since my first vintage was '97, which actually turned out to be a really lovely, soft, easy style of wine. And I've tasted lots of vintages that were great wines allegedly, and they were almost untasteable in their early days because they were so big and powerful, and they probably didn't turn out to be that great. So I think congratulations on this to Ben, to Maison Sichel, to Angludet. It really bodes well. I'm sure it'll close down after a few years, and as it takes on more weight and more energy, and then open up and keep going through evolutions and get better and better. Very exciting. I just wanted to come back to a point about the high alcohol levels. Is it something you found that is by appellation, or is it by chateau and the way that they've managed?
We know that the Merlot is a grape variety which is more sensible to heat, and matures quicker. So for the people who use Merlot, a lot of Merlot, while the alcohols are usually higher, especially in Saint-Emilion, the alcohols are quite high. However, today it's everything depends. We can't talk about appellation anymore. Everything depends on the vineyard, on the team, on the decisions they took. But today, talking about areas, okay, you can have some styles, but I mean, some can be very different because they changed the way of working in the vineyard and working in the cellar. Today we have so many information. We've progressed so much in wine. We are at a level where everybody can adapt themselves differently, and adapt themselves to a certain vintage. And I was quite surprised to taste I tasted quite a lot of Pessac-Léognan, and Pessac-Léognan is also one of the closest, and the closest vineyard from Bordeaux, which means more heat, closer to the town, to Bordeaux, means more heat. So hot in the day, also hot at night. So they had to adapt themselves, and I was amazingly surprised how some chateaus have adapt themselves, and the wine is fantastic. And some others, I've tried some other Pessac-Léognan where it's too hot, way too hot, and alcohol levels are more than 15, and it's just it's different. It's a different style, and I think today the freshness in wines is very important, especially the acidity is very important for the aging.
Mm-hmm.
I would second that. and think people are looking for more elegance and less oak and all of those properties. I do note there's a lot of questions on the chat thing. I don't know if you can reach it, but I think we need to.
Max, yeah, before we wind this up, can I ask you a few more questions that we've had
Yeah,
in?
sure. Please.
So I suppose the most relevant one that we've just had in is from Philippa asking, is 2019 Angludet similar to any other vintage for the Chateau?
Well, no, that's the thing. It's I think we're lucky to be on the 45 parallel. So which means you all have every time you have the vintage which is different. It's we could compare it to other vintages, but there's nothing, there's no style which is the same as 2019. But I think it has I think it personally has the elegance and freshness of 16, and the alcohol level of 15, and it also has a classic style which we found in many tastings in Bordeaux. Has this classic style which 2008 would have. So it's a mix of many different vintages, and it's one own vintage actually, and quite special. Et voilà.
Unique.
Excellent.
And I'll move on to the final couple of questions, if I may. Mr. Goodbrand and Mr. Francis ask similar questions in that does COVID-19 present any threats to manpower availability in harvesting the grapes? And then we've also got, how do you expect the current challenges for travel to the Bordeaux region and holding tastings in the markets to affect the 19 Bordeaux campaign?
So for the COVID and the people, so it's a hard question to answer because it's the harvest is in a long time. So September. I actually haven't thought about that, but it's quite an interesting question because everything is manually done here at Angludet. But if we have a second wave, obviously it will be very difficult to pick, and we might have to use a machine which we don't use usually. But if it's COVID and there's a second wave, we can't afford to lose another crop. So we would maybe use machines, which is not bad for the grapes themselves, but it's bad for the vines. It fragilizes the vines, and so that's not good for the vines themselves. So we'll find solutions, but it could affect the manpower availability to harvest the grapes.
Yeah.
For the second question, so challenge for travel to Bordeaux and holding tastings in the markets to affect 2019 Bordeaux. So if yes, we've it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question because we've talked about it for the last 2 or maybe 3 months now, how this situation, the crisis, will affect the 2019 En Primeur campaign. I've always thought, and I still think, that it's we need to do a 2019 En Primeur campaign, and I'm sure there'll be a success. It's maybe not going to be as good as several Primeur campaign like 2016, which was our record actually, where the sales were really good. because of this situation. It's maybe not. It's maybe not going to be as good. But I seriously think that it's going to be a good campaign. Why? Because two points. First of all, well, actually 3 points. First of all, 2019 is a good vintage. We've tasted many wines. We are very happy with the quality in Bordeaux, and some are obviously different to others, but the global style is very good. So, which is a very good point. Second point is the chateaus. We've been talking to clients, talking to Mr. Davy and the team, and several importers around the world, asking them advices, and they said, well, the market is difficult today. We're not selling it. We're not selling. We have difficulty. It's the crisis, and we said to all the chateaus and to our chateaus, we know that we have to adapt ourselves to the crisis, releasing really good prices for the wines, and you really have to be underneath of the market. We decided to do that at Angludet. Angludet is today it's the one of the cheapest vintages which you can find on the market, and for considering the really good vintage, and it's that's very important for us, because if you don't adapt yourself to the market, it's not going to work. And I think the chateaus have understood this. We have an example of today with Pontet, which released at a minus 31% compared to last year, bringing so being at one of the cheapest prices of Pontet on the market today, considering the good vintage also. So I think we're going towards really a good campaign. And the third point is, I don't know about yourself, but myself, I can't wait to buy wine. I've been buying wines on the internet for the last for last month actually, and having this en primeur campaign is also exciting. You're discovering new products. You're tasting some wines online with some producers, which wasn't the case before. And it makes some excitement about the wine, and we forget about all this crisis. We forget about all these horrible stories, which is depressing, actually, really depressing. We're entering a very hard period. We know it's a big crisis. I heard some people talking today about half of the restaurants in France will close down. It's shocking. We're entering a really hard period, and thinking about positive things is also it's very important. And I think it's something which it's an escape, which is very well. I find it good for people. So voila, I think
good for the mind. I think a lot of people here would agree. Max, I'm gonna wrap this up with one final question before the mozzies shred you to bits.
Yeah, can you? I've been there's so many mozzies around. It's horrible.
So I think you alluded to it earlier, but when should we start drinking 2019? As soon as it's released, and for the next 20 years, or is there a sort of a pinnacle date that we should be looking at?
So what's important is that Ben knows, and he really thinks it's from 2016 vintage. He started to produce wines which he was always focusing on the balance in the wine, and he said that these balanced wines can be drunk after 4 years being on the after 4 years starting to be drunk. So after 4 years, he thinks these wines can be drunk, and I totally agree with him. 2019, so it's going to have more slightly more power to the wine, more intensity, but will keep this really nice softness, and will be able to be drunk in 4 years' time. So I think 2024 up to in 30 years. So it depends how many you buy, but I think you should. I really like I like young wines and old wines too. I really like both. So I would definitely buy some for in the next 4 years, and I would definitely keep some a bit to see how it changes and evolves. So I would say 2024 and or 2023 as it's the 19, sorry.
Yeah.
And up to 2040, 2050.
Great. And to just quickly follow up on Liam's question, magnums, do they make the wine last longer?
Yes, of course. So it's very easy to understand. Actually, it's as you have the same amount of air in the bottle, but you have the double of wine. There's less contact with oxygen, which means it will last. Well, it's will evolve slower and will last longer too.
Okay, great. Okay.
Any other questions? I think there was some questions about some amphoras.
Have a look. Oh, yeah, sorry. Francis asks, will the use of amphora influence the aging potential of Chateau Angludet?
The aging potential, I don't think so. Not on the aging potential. It will influence more on the fruit, on the power, on the of the fruit and the precision of the wine itself. You have to know that the amphoras are so made in terre cuite, which is made. I don't know how you say terre cuite in English, but it has the same porosity exchange with oxygen than the barrel.
Okay.
So you can. So it's funny. It's how they produce it. All depends on the degrees they use in the big ovens to produce these amphoras. You can decide the amount of oxygen you want to go through the amphora to the wine. You can say you want I want to use like a new oak barrel, like a 1-year-old barrel, like a 2-year-old barrel, like a 4-year-old barrel, and they will produce it exactly how you like it. And this depends on the temperature they use to produce these amphoras, and it changes quite a lot. 20 degrees too much can actually stop all the oxygen in the wine. We've chosen to be exactly the same as the barrels, so it has the same exchange of oxygen than the barrels. And voilà.
Really good question on that note from Steve Kirkham. So barrels do give an oak flavour, particularly new barrels.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is clay?
Sorry?
Does the clay from amphora give a flavour?
No, there's no flavors out of amphoras. It's completely neutral, and it's more about the precision of the fruit then, and it's more conserving the fruit from the wine.
Sure.
Voilà.
Excellent. Well, we'll wrap up there if everybody's happy to do so. I would just quickly like to say thank you very much to everybody for joining us. Big thanks to Max and Angludet for lending us their samples and letting us judge them at this stage. I think the wine is absolutely superb, and I look forward
Thank
to
you, Ben.
my bottles over the next 10 years or so, 20 years. Thank you very much to Max and James. And hopefully we'll see you all at the next Primeur tasting.
Thank you very much, everybody. It's been very nice to present the wine, and it's a first time, so maybe not as well organized as would be in real seeing you, but unfortunately that's the way it is today. But I hope to meet you in person, and I hope we'll be able to share some Angludet wines together.
Yeah, Max, I just reiterate the thanks, and I'm sure everybody else. And it's very difficult when nobody else can say what they want to say all the time, and I appreciate that. That's it's been great of you to talk and explain so much to us. The next time we'll get you into we'll get you over here into London, and we'll let everybody know who's spent time listening that you're here, and people can meet you and talk about the wines, and if possible we'll open a few old ones, and this has been brilliant. But if I say do it properly, don't misunderstand me, but this is a great medium, but it just makes you want to get around the table even more, and I look forward to doing that.
Perfect. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope to see you soon.
Okay, take care.
Good night.
Take care.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much for coming. Bye.